All right, we are getting ready for our live stream as you would expect. Hope you're ready, because I know I am. So today's video, we're going to be in Murrieta, California. It's a pretty popular place. I actually had a house over there in Bear Creek. Shout out to that community. Really cool place. At the end of the day, if you're looking for a nice private golf club community, and you're in the Temecula Murrieta area, definitely want to check that out. I don't know, maybe we'll find some houses over there. You know the GIF. We're going to do small, medium, large. I'm going to try and do more medium, large, extra large systems because I think we're seeing more homeowners with EVs from this last quarter with that tax credit on electric vehicles expiring on September 30th, I believe. So no more tax credit for electric vehicles. As you know, Musk and Trump got in a little feud over that, as well as with the expiration of the federal investment tax credit. That 30% is expiring here soon for residential homeowners. So you got to ask yourself, is solar still economical? Yes, it's still economical, even if you don't get the tax credit. There's still battery rebates available for you. One particular is the self-generation incentive program. I got an upcoming video on that, so be sure to subscribe to the channel so that way you learn more about the self-generation incentive program, as well as another program that I'm thankfully able to offer thanks to Axia by QCell. Yeah, right over there. QCell is one of my partners, and they have a division that handles incentives, right? One of the incentives is the renewable energy certificates. This is something I've never been able to talk about. Very few YouTubers actually even talk about it because most companies don't do it. And it's mainly because it's complicated. So we're going to actually be able to talk about that. And I got that video coming, so you're going to want to subscribe. So with that said, let's get in to looking for some houses for sale in Murrieta, California, and find out what it would take to put solar on them and what you would be looking at in adding that to your home value. Again, let's try and do medium, large, extra large. Maybe we'll do large, extra large. The homes over here tend to be a little bit bigger. So switching over here. Of course, you can always visit the website reinnovations.org at the top of the screen, link down in the description below, and you can request a hassle-free quote. If you need a consultation because you already got some proposals, well, just reach out. We do paid consultations. I can review those proposals you already have. We can dive into more details because I'm not your run-of-the-mill solar sales rep. I'm someone that has handled everything in a project. I've done installations, I've done project coordination, I've done project management, and I've done operations. I've done everything. So, you know, I got over a decade of experience, and I have plenty of partners. We're working on onboarding with a new partner, which I'm really excited to talk about. And we also have some pretty cool big projects coming up with an electrician that we've been consulting with for him and his clients. So really excited to be showcasing his work up in the Simi Valley area. So if you're looking for a great electrician that is going to be now specializing in solar and storage, not just, you know, commercial and multifamily, he's branching out and then opening up, you know, his workload. So really cool, but he's got this massive project. I got a little video coming out where I'm talking a little bit about it and about our services, as how we work with electricians and other solar contractors to help reduce their overhead costs. So be sure to subscribe. But here we are in Murrieta. We're going to need to narrow down this search. So we need to hide pending and contingent. We need to hide foreclosure. We need to hide land. We need to hide mobile homes. Those are properties that we're usually not installing on. You know, we don't. I wish you could hide new construction, but it is what it is. So yeah, that's all done. Property type, we only want houses. So houses. So now we're only looking at houses. We got 337. So we're going to want to narrow this down a little bit more, right? We want to let's go for some large homes and see how these realtors are doing in terms of their marketing. So let's give a minimum of 2,500 square feet up to 3,500 square feet. That narrows it down to about 119 homes. I have seen prices coming down a little bit. It might start kind of flatlining as the Feds are decreasing the rates. They just dropped the points 25 basis, and there are indicators of the rates coming down more. Look at this one, $60,000 price drop, 5-bedroom, 3-bath house in Murrieta. Does not look like it has solar. Let's see if we can get a good view on that. This is a short sale. Wow, haven't seen those in a lot. When I got into real estate, it was when the short sale market was going on. So it's crazy to see short sales popping back up again. These can be great buy opportunities. Usually you can get them pretty well under market value, but it takes time. A lot of times a short sale takes like a year or two or longer. So they don't have a lot of exterior photos, as you can see. No solar. There we go. We got a house, no solar. Finally found some drone photos. So let's grab this property address, which it's not letting me highlight. Been having some weird issues. So what is it? 30570. And don't forget, the chat is open, so I have it up on my screen. So if you had any questions while I'm building out a system, I can do that. Fox Siege Way. Look at that. That's good orientation. We got great west orientation and then northeast. This is mostly east on that side. So let's go ahead and click to design. Keep in mind, these are just general proposals. So the best thing you can do is reach out to schedule a consultation or request a free quote on your home. If you end up buying a house, you know, I do have formulas that I use to kind of estimate what your energy production will likely be for this residence. Now, the one thing that I like to base the baseline off of is the square footage. So for this home, we're looking at 2,822 square feet. So I use 3 watts per square foot to come up with the annual kilowatt hours as the baseline for the property. And that's going to give us 8,466 kilowatt hours. So we're going to jump over to our energy tab. And I use open solar for all of my designs. I can retrofit systems so we can estimate your solar production. I can do a lot of stuff within this proposal software that really gives you some really accurate numbers that I really like. And you can see it kind of gave a great baseline off of the monthly productions. And then of course you'd be under net metering 3.0. Now, depending on how many people are living in this house, I might add more to the consumption of the home. Depends on your living habits, if you own electric vehicles, what your mileage are. There's a lot of variables, but we're going to go ahead and start off with 8,466. I think that's a good baseline. As you can see, I have a full 3D modeling up of the property. Open solar is great with that. If you live in a newer development, I might need to do near maps, but most of the time my Google 3D modeling is really solid. So I'm going to build this first quote using Axia by QCell. We have quite a few projects in with them. And yeah, they're a good team over there, getting pretty busy with this end of the year push. So if you were hoping to get your system installed by the end of the year, I'm sorry, but I think it's getting close to that cutoff. I mean, the average turnaround time for a project in California is about 55 days. I do have another installer that has a slightly lower average. That's Energy Service Partners. But yeah, it's getting tough. You know, if you haven't made the investment in clean renewable energy prior to the tax credit expiring. So we had some vents. We had a vent right here. We had a vent right there. I put some landscape panels on the top. So we got 16 panels, as you can see on this left-hand side. That's given us 131% offset. So that's 11,123 kilowatt hours of solar production. Now, under net metering 3.0, you need to have storage. You don't really earn much credits for your excess solar energy. So it's really important that you get solar for it. Now, this is a concrete roof, so we're going to do tile concrete. And then what we're going to do is design this system using, I'm going to actually, given that the size isn't that big, we're at a 6.88 kilowatt system, we're going to go with QCell's own Q-Home Core hybrid configuration. So they got a great Q-Home battery. It's called the Q-Home Core. It's up to 20 kilowatt hours. It uses modular batteries. They increase by 5. The base is 10, and then it scales up to 20. So I think for this video, I know we kind of do a little things differently in each video. I'm going to go ahead and use this hybrid inverter, and then what we'll do is we'll do a 10 kilowatt hour, a 15 kilowatt hour, and a 20 kilowatt hour. So you can kind of gauge the difference between them. And unlike the previous videos, we're not going to do backup. I'm actually going to do these as self-consumption. So we're going to be adding a discount in there since these are just going to be designed for self-consumption, much faster install, and honestly, a lot of people don't need backup in the Murrieta area. You don't typically see power outages. So it is nice to have, and you might feel like, hey, that $1,000 discount isn't worth it. Let's just get the battery backup system. So, but let's get you some numbers at least to start off with. So we're going to manual battery. We're going to jump over here. We're going to grab Axe here by Q-Cell, 10 kilowatt hour stack, DC coupled, no battery accessories because we're not doing anything. This is it. That's very simple system. We're going to name this 16 panels plus 10 kilowatt hours battery. 10 kilowatt hour battery. Simple, right? And then, yeah, I need to add some discounts. Give me 1 second so I can add the discounts. I got to go into my pricing tab, which I can't show. Have rules with the Q Home Core non-backup discount. Yep, that's what I want. But like I said, it's $1,000. So now I can jump back over here to design so you can see what I'm working on. So we got 16 panels, 10 kilowatt hours. Let's go ahead and duplicate that. We're going to bump this up. We're just going to add one 5 kilowatt hour module. So all I got to do is go in here. I'm going to go back over to the Q-Save, and we're going to change it to the D15. So bam, now I got the D15 in there, and then we're going to duplicate it again, repeat, and do the 20 kilowatt hour system. So bam. So now you're going to have 3 options if you got a quote and you were looking at Q-Cell's Q Home Core. Looks like I have some questions from Prince. Nice seeing you. Happy Tuesday to you as well. So does the solar have to be installed and power company give approval to operate PTO by the end of the year to get the tax credit, or as long as it's fully installed even if you are waiting for PTO? So it's a little ambiguous. I have received some notices from some engineers indicating that the system needs to be permitted, needs to be installed, and needs to be operational. You can wait for PTO and inspection. So if as long as the system's fully installed and operational by December 31st, you're supposed to be good to go. Now, the inspection and the permission to operate from the utility can be in 2026. That's what I'm being told from different organizations. My best thing is it's just best to have your system installed and ideally try to get PTO. But we've gone through this before with the transition of NEM2 to NEM3, and the utilities get backed up, the jurisdictions get backed up. So if your contractor, your installer is able to get everything put together and get it working, technically you should be kosher. So that's from my understanding. I'm going to just stick with what other professionals have indicated in the industry. I think I've mentioned in some other videos before that you really should have PTO done, which would mean you have your inspection done as well. But everybody, I keep seeing a lot of things saying, no. It needs to just be fully installed, operational. Yeah, you're very welcome, Prince. Thank you for asking that question. It's a very important one because it's getting down to the wire for people. So, depending on the organization we're working with, you could definitely have your system fully installed and operational by the end of the year. Just depends on the size of your project. A cookie cutter solution like this, and I don't mean that in a bad way. It's just, this is a basic system. It's 16 panels, 10 to 20 kilowatt hours. This is a quick turnaround. As you can see, with 10 kilowatt hours, we got a grid independence score of 77%. Remember, I'm the only one that puts this score in the proposals. I don't see a lot of other proposals with that grid independence score. It really helps you understand how much of your solar and the battery are you consuming. Are you being as self-sufficient as you can? and that score is helping you do that. Add that extra 5 kilowatt hours. Look, now we're up to 15 kilowatt hours. Look at how much that grid independence score jumped up, 91%. Jump over to the 20 kilowatt hour, not as big of a jump, right? Because you start just hitting a point where, yeah, more solar, more storage, it gets hard to get 100%. You know, if you're between 90 and 100%, that's a great design. If you're above 70%, that's a good design, right? Great design is going to be above 85%, in my opinion. A good design is going to be above 70%. Really comes down to your budget, because these batteries do get expensive. And you can see the net system cost is $33,388 for the Q-Cell system, and that's without backup. Here's your non-backup. That's from Axia. They're giving you $1,000 off. So if you wanted the backup, you're looking at $34,388. So, you know, do you want $1,000? When's the last time you experienced a power outage? But maybe that's a little out of your budget. Can we get it under 30,000? Yes, we can. So if you go with 15 kilowatt hours, you can see you can get your system with 91% grid independence, right? Under $30,000. That's $29,288. Now, I know I'm not showing the tax credit here, but if you were able to make the move quick, you could be looking at about a $9,000 tax credit. That's pretty good. That brings your net purchase price down to, you know, $20,000. That's pretty reasonable. Now, remember, I mentioned that Q-Cell signs you up for programs. So the Renewable Energy Certificate, as well as the virtual power plant program. So in combination with these programs, a system like this, you could receive up to $500 per year for the life of owning this system. I'm only showing you an ownership option. If you need a third-party ownership, a TPO, like a PPA, a power purchase agreement, or a lease, we have those options available thanks to thanks to Q-Cell's ownership over Enfin. So Q-Cell also not only has their own installation division, they have their own financing division, and that is Enfin. So they can do third-party ownership. And as you can see, the old bill for this property is $250. That's a big chunk of change. That's the average. The new bill, after getting 15 kilowatt hours of storage with 16 panels, is a really good system, $17. Now, what's the difference on a 20 or on the 10? So how much more does the bill go up? The bill goes up like $10. But what did the price come down? The price only came down $1,000. So as you can see, there's just raw costs associated with the system that you're not going to be avoiding. But Q-Cell is giving you an amazing deal at that 15 kilowatt hour price point. So at 15 kilowatt hours, it's $1,000 more basically, and you're getting 5 kilowatt hours more storage. You know, that's a good value in my opinion, and you're getting the lowest bill possible. If we jump up to the 20 kilowatt hour, you're going up 33. You know, so you're adding about $4,000, and your bill only goes down like $2, right? You just have fixed costs you can't avoid. That's why I say that grid independence score is really important. So if you're getting quotes, you want to ask that rep. You don't want to know how much solar I'm generating, 120%, 130%. That's a good number to know. But what's more important is that grid independence score. If they don't have that on there, you should be calling someone else, reaching out to us here at Renewable Innovations, because that score is going to help you know that you've got a good or great system designed for you, and if it's actually going to meet your needs. So this was a great medium-sized system. It was about 7 kilowatts. Let's take it up a notch, and let's try and find a house for sale that is bigger. Remember, I'm not affiliated with Realtor.com. I'm not affiliated with any of these listings. Yes, I used to be a realtor myself many, many years ago before I got into the solar industry. You know, so I'm all tuned with real estate in that sense, and what the ins and outs are. Solar really does add value to a property, though, and so don't get that confused. So what's going to take this up? We're going to go up to 5,000 square feet, and we're going to bump up our minimum to 3,500. So we're going to do the minimum at 3,500. 46 properties in the Murrieta area that are between 3,500 square feet and 5,000. This is going to be a large, almost extra large system right now. Remember, we're only doing this live stream for about an hour. I try to keep it short, give you good content, give you good information, real numbers. I think on this next one, going this big, we might want to look at the Tesla Powerwall 3. And maybe we'll compare it to an Enphase system. Now, I recently had someone reach out asking about adding batteries to their Enphase site. Now, I'm going to be looking at a property I'm looking for a property real quick. That one's not too bad. That one's about 3,900 square feet. That does not look like a 3,900 square foot house. That one's already got solar on it. That one's rough. I did want to do a ground mount last week, if I recall correctly. So let's do a ground mount. This one looks like a good one to be doing a ground mount on. So we are at, doesn't have solar, right? I don't see any solar anywhere on the lot. And these realtors can be a little, we got property details. This is in La Cresta. A lot of homes in La Cresta tend to have solar. I've done plenty of consulting on new construction out there. So if you're planning on building a home out in the La Cresta area, reach out. Happy to put together some proposals for you. Get your solar contractors lined up. Whatever it takes, I'm here for you. So those are typically paid consultations, by the way. If you need a hassle-free quote because you already own your house, that's, those can be free. It's a hassle-free. I just give you some numbers and we kind of explore that. But, the paid consultations are more for, custom stuff. All right, so we got the large done. Let's jump over here and put in this address, 21855, The Trails Circle, Murrieta. I don't see solar. This is a big property too. All right, now I'm going to zoom out a little bit. Wow, they have a whole thing. That's probably part of theirs. Maybe. I don't know. I wonder if that's their lot. Is this a different house? That might be a different house. All right. Let's grab this. We're going to do a ground mount. Now, ground mount proposals definitely jump up in price pretty quickly. And then what was the square footage on this property? We're going to go 3943 times 3, 11,829 kilowatt hours. All right, we got our usage, NEM3 down there. So we still have our 3D modeling. And the problem with this property is, as you can see on the back of the house, it's north. So that means if we put the solar in and we're facing it north, that's not doing the homeowner any justice. So that's kind of frustrating, but it does look like we might have some room right here on this front side of the house. So depending on your preference, whether or not you would like to see it, I personally wouldn't mind it at the entrance of my home versus it facing my house. Because if I put it back here, we're going to have to tilt it towards the home. So you're always going to be looking at those gorgeous panels. But yeah, it's a little different. I mean, maybe we could do it way back here. It just gets down to that trench run. The further you are from your main electrical panel, the more expensive it gets. Wire's not cheap, and you have to keep increasing those size as voltage drops over distance. Now, AC current doesn't drop as bad as DC, but it still drops. So, that's just something you got to keep in mind. But we're going to go ahead and we're going to do this bigger. We'll do it over here. And we'll just say it was about 150 feet for the trenching. So we're going to add a new system. I'm going to grab our panels, Q cells 430. I'll line these up. My system already knows, like, look, we're going to do a single tilt. We're going to kind of lay this out. And I'll be adjusting it. Usually you can do about 3 or 4 modules on a rail of panels, especially the XR1000. That's typically what's used. All right, Kimmy's got a question. If they wanted to power their barn back there, could they put it closer to the middle of the property? Well, solar doesn't work like that, so you got to remember how energy works. So alternating current power is always flowing back and forth. So it doesn't matter where that solar connection ultimately is made. The batteries do, but not so much the solar, because it's always going to power those loads. So if the barn is closer for that interconnection, then cool, yeah, we can land it in the sub panel in the barn, and the power will go through the barn's loads, and then it goes to the home's loads before it goes to the utility meter. And the same principle applies if we land the circuit breaker for the solar in the main panel. That circuit breaker is powering all the loads of the home, which includes any loads going to any sub panels like the barn before it goes to the utility grid. Now when you have batteries, the batteries do need to stay near the electrical panel. Another one from Prince, if they have enough land property, would you recommend a ground mount or a roof mount? Ground mount adds cost. That's a great question. It adds cost. So it really comes down to your budget. If you really don't want it on your house, then ground mount's the way to go, because you don't have a whole lot of other options. I've done projects where it's both. We've put some on the house and we've put some on the ground to try and balance out the price. And it's a little bit more complicated. Luckily for that site, the ground mount wasn't too far from the main electrical panel. I want to say it was like 70 feet, 80 feet. So that was well within range. For this site, this would be hard to run the electrical and the solar so far apart. Because the batteries, you got to keep in mind, are still going to be by the house, unless it's designed specifically for all the batteries to be down below. You can do that. I've consulted on projects and put all the batteries down at the ground mount. You can do it. It's a good thing to do, but again, it comes down to that distance, because if you got 3 batteries, right, and you normally, that's like, you're looking at, for 3 Franklin batteries, that'd be 180 amps. So normally you'd be running number 3 aught. You might have to increase that to 4 aught or 500 kmc. I mean, that's going to be very expensive. Again, it depends on the distance, but there's also communication limits with the batteries. So I recommend, if you have the roof space, just put it on the roof. But some people have the space for a ground mount and their roofs don't allow it. I've seen homes where they're built and the roofs are like 45, 65 degrees. It's going to be just as expensive to install on a very pitched roof as it is to just do the ground mount, because you got to bring in all this extra equipment and all this safety gear to install on a roof that is almost vertical. So versus it being on the ground. Maintenance is a little bit easier on a ground mount, truthfully. So 28 degrees, and we're facing about 200 degrees. I'm going to see if I can just face this south, right there. So we got 27 panels for this ground mount. As you can see, I got a tree in the way, and now what I can do is I can go into my tools and I can do a tree trimmer. So this is a tree trimmer, and what I'm going to do, because you have to clear out the area for the solar anyways. So what I'm going to do is I got to zoom in on this map. Oh, that got kind of wonky real quick. What's going on here, guys? Apparently the 3D data just totally glitched out there. So what this tree trimmer does, it allows me to scale out the tree. So we're going to do the width at about 30. The height, I always just do it bigger. Length about 30, and then the height we're going to do about 20 feet. So and you can see in the 3D modeling, it's like way above where this is actually at. So we're going to do that, and then we're probably going to trim out more of these trees as well. So let's go 50 by 100. So because the whole area would just get cleared out, honestly. All that stuff would just be removed, because you can't have anything 3 feet around the perimeter. You're welcome, Prince, by the way. Around the solar array, you have to keep it a clear area all the way around. So inverter, with this one, you can go microinverters, you can go string inverters, you can go hybrid inverters. There's a couple different options to go here. Again, it comes down to that distance. For this particular job, I'm going to go with the microinverters. 27 panels isn't too bad, and then we'll AC couple in the batteries. We're going to do the power walls, but we're going to use Q cells microinverters. So they have the Qtron modules in DC and AC. I did a great video. When you get a proposal, it talks about the difference between those two modules. So there we go on that. And oh, this system jumped up way high in terms of its production. So We're at like 170%. So move this out of the way and knock off some panels. Where did my modules go? There they go. All right, we got our clear area, about 140%. So now we're about 24 panels. That's pretty good. Now let's grab our Powerwall 3s. I'm thinking for a site like this, we're going to probably want a minimum of 2 Powerwall 3s. And don't regard this pricing in here. This is not relevant to anything. That's through distribution. That's not, it's a very annoying thing that I can't delete. It really does annoy me. So we're going to do 2 main units, AC coupled. And for this property, hopefully they have a 200 amp service, because then we can do Tesla's backup switch. So we're going to do that. So this is 24 panels plus 2 power walls. And then we're going to duplicate this, and we're going to do 3 power walls. Bump that up. Now I have to go in and add some custom equipment. So I have to go AXQ, mounting. I have my own code system in here for different partners. Mounting, ground mount right here, right? Ground mount, yeah. All right, ground mount. So we got ground mount, and then we're gonna need some trenching. So I'm gonna go AXQ. I think this is just under TR. Yep, trenching. This is by the foot. So I'm going to say it's about 125 feet, right, to trench from the electrical over here. I'm assuming the main panel somewhere over here. That's a long trench, but 125 feet is usually what you see. So I'm going to actually delete this one real quick, and then duplicate this one, and then delete a battery. Cool, 2 batteries. Alright. I don't know what's going on with the panels, why they disappeared. Where'd you guys go? Software sometimes, right? It's very glitchy sometimes. You know, let's save this while we're making some progress. And then wow, like smashed it together. All right, we're gonna refresh the browser. Hopefully that fixes it. That did not fix it. That made it worse. I think it's just this guy being too big. Let's drop it down. There we go. And there are my panels. And what's probably happening is the elevation on the modules, they're going like in the ground. Yeah. Pull that forward. This guy out there. Pull it this way a little bit, pull it that way a little bit. That looks good. And we should be able to fix this one. I'm going to do the same thing. A little finicky, but it's okay. Alright, so they're all calculated. We made some adjustments there. Production's going to be somewhat similar since they're not exactly the same. So we're going to save that. We have our trenching in there. So now let's look at this proposal. So this is a ground mount. This is the first time I'm able to show you a ground mount. Again, there would likely be more cost after the site visit. This is just to kind of give us a baseline to start. Maybe there's not any extra cost. I'm usually pretty good with just the ground mount and the trenching adder in there. Those are the 2 main ones that we have to take into account. So grid independence score with 2 Powerwalls for this property, which, it's, yeah, okay. Yeah, 101%. That's pretty solid. If we go to 3 Powerwalls, 102%. So that's where it's going to come down to. It's like once you hit 100%, like adding more storage doesn't always make sense. Same with adding more solar. Doesn't always make sense. As you can see, the solar production kind of jumps between the two. That really just has to do with the placement of the modules and that tree trimmer that I have. So, I would probably spend a little bit more time if this was a quote from my client to make sure that all the proposals were identical in terms of their estimated production, and make sure any of those weird software glitches where it's moving around weren't in there. But this being a big project, look, we have 24 430 watt modules, we have 24 Q-cell microinverters, we have 2 Tesla Powerwall units, main units. So that's going to give you 23 kilowatts AC power. That's a lot of energy, trust me, and a 27 kilowatt hours of storage. Then we got the ground mount itself, because we have to build a rack. So they're going to drill holes in the ground, they're going to put sonotubes in it, they're going to hold 2-inch steel posts, fill them up with concrete. They're going to be spanned out every 4, 6, 8, 12 feet. It really just depends on the engineering and the type of soil you have. Sometimes you can't get 4 feet deep in the ground. A lot of the times you have to go 4 feet deep on a 16-inch circle. So those are things to take into account. If you can't go deeper, you only hit 2 feet and then you hit granite. This happens all the time in Murrieta. Guess what? You got to go wider. Now you're doing a much wider footing. So it gets costly building a ground mount system. That's where a roof system is cheaper, because you already have the structure. It's ready to go. You just got to bolt some stuff up to an existing structure versus building it. Now I will say Q-Cell has some of the best pricing in ground mounts. I really don't see a lot of ground mounts at the pricing that they have it at. So I got to give kudos to where kudos can be given, because kudos to them on making sure they can provide great pricing. Trenching price, that's pretty standard across the industry. Someone's got a trench, you got to be 3 feet deep in the ground, and you got to remember that trench price is going to include usually the increase in wire size. Not always, really depends on the distance. If you got a really crazy long run, I had a client I was consulting on, they were building a home, they wanted the ground mount 350 feet away, and she said some solar installer was willing to install the system for like $17,000, and I'm like, maybe for your roof. I don't think anybody's installing that for 350 feet away. The wire is going to cost $2,000, lady. Like, are you tripping? But good luck. Good luck. I mean, it's just, some people are obnoxious until the day comes, and then that dude doesn't ever show up to do the job, or you end up with posts all sideways, and it's going to affect your new construction project. Just go with the right guy the first time. Don't waste your time with unrealistic quotes. And if you really have a quote from that, send it to me. I asked you, send it to me, and you never did. So I'm not trying to give anybody a hard time, but I've been doing this a long time. If someone says they can build a ground mount for $17,000, 350 feet from your house, one, they're not making any money, and two, they're not going to be around to service the system, and three, God knows what they're installing. What are they really installing here? Because it ain't a solar system. So this is a pretty big system. You got your backup switch. What I like about the Tesla Powerwall backup switch, guess what? There's no emergency loads panel. Your main panel becomes the emergency loads panel. Just boom, you're good to go. It's the cleanest, simplest install. So if we jump over to 3 Powerwalls, right, we already know that we're at 102%. That might actually be a little higher. But look at that cost, $76,000, $64,000, right? So that extra Powerwall is adding about $12,000 to this project. And again, we already have an expensive project because of it being a ground mount. So if we look at this, the old bill was almost $400, $381 a month. Now this homeowner with 3 Powerwalls is still expected to save $185,000 over 25 years. You do 2 batteries, you're at $184,000. So there's not a big difference between the 2 and the 3. I would probably encourage you to just go with 2 with this. Save the money, it's not worth it. Hopefully we come out there, do the site visit, and we can bring down the cost a little bit, maybe $1,000, $2,000. It's not going to be a dramatic price difference from what we're proposing, but hey, it will help on your return on investment, especially without that 30% federal tax credit. But here's the thing. Batteries are eligible for the self-generation incentive rebate. You know, that program's been around for a while now. You have the renewable energy credits, and you have virtual power plants. These are programs that give you money back for having either solar implemented on your home or adding storage. I mean, there's still incentives and rebates available, and organizations like Axie by QCell, they're going to do the paperwork so that way you don't have to worry about it, and you just have to just wait for your check to come in the mail. It's really great. I really can't emphasize how great that is. Now, if you were curious to see what this same design would cost, just assuming we were able to fit it all on the roof, well, let's do that. So that way you could see. So we're going to do a new design. We're just going to do a new system. We don't even care about that in the back. We're going to zoom in on this house, which looks like a blob, and throw some panels on the roof. Now this is a house that I probably would run through near maps to get better resolution images, just to make sure I had a much cleaner layout. But I have a pretty good visual right here, just seeing it the way it is. So that's about 11. We have 13 more panels we need to figure out where to fit. This looks like this goes this way. So that's, and this piece, so it looks like there's a valley right here. Something like this. I might be able to do landscape. Yeah, and fit more modules. So something like that. So that's 21. Not quite an apples to apples comparison. I need more roofs. North is that way, so I really don't want to put anything over here if I don't have to. And sometimes this is a good place to add in that shading report, which I believe, I think that's under, no, it's not under there. Where's my little shading thing? Oh no, I'm looking for this button. There we go. Alright. And that's definitely, so that's about right there. Does look like this roof might continue over here. This might be a valley right there. That might be a little dormer pop out at the end of the day. So we got about 23 panels on the roof. I think that's pretty close. Pretty close. Yeah. So we're going to go with that. It's not going to be a perfect apples to apples comparison of the 23 to 24, but it will be good enough for us to go, hey, yeah, that's still close. I mean, what I can do, just to lay out aside. Again, this is just for educational purposes, just to help you get some pricing in front of you, get you interested and get a visual of what it would take for you to add solar to your new home if you were thinking about doing that. And then batteries. We're going to go with 2 power walls, main unit, double, backup switch. All right. Hit save. So now we can look at what the extra cost is associated with that ground mount versus it being a rooftop, right? So we have 24 panels plus battery. We know what that is. And you can see there's no adders on this one, there's adders on that one, right? Same system size, same number of batteries. So there you go, $52,605 for 2 Tesla Powerwall 3s and Q-Cells Qtron AC modules. So these are high performance, high wattage modules, 430 watts with microinverters developed by Q-Cell, all made right here and assembled in the United States. So that's really great. I believe most of the Powerwalls are made here in the United States as well, in like Arizona or something. So you can't complain about that. And then you look at the ground mount, and you can see we're adding about $12,000 in cost to build that structure, to do the concrete, to do the trenching. And honestly, that's not that bad. For a system this size, that's honestly pretty generous, because there are a lot of extra costs related to it. Increase in voltage, which relates, voltage drop, which increases wire size. You have trenching, it's labor intensive. You have multiple inspections, for the holes. It's a whole thing. So if you can, put it on the roof. If you really don't want it on the roof, put it on the ground, but try and keep it 150 feet or less. I can't emphasize that enough. When you go over 150 feet, it changes a whole bunch of things. You have communication issues, you have really significant voltage drop. Those are things you don't want to pay extra for just because. Now we're coming up on 45 minutes, so we got about 15 minutes left. Let me see if we can squeeze in maybe just a small system. Let's do a small system, because I thought that was a pretty good size system for this. But yeah, well, small system real quick. Let's do 1250 to 2250 square feet in the Murrieta area. That one's kind of cute, right? 3 bedroom, 2 bath, 1,275 square feet. Usage probably isn't very high. Doesn't look like they have solar. Do we have any drone shots? No solar on it from what it looks like. Perfect. Let's grab this and put together a proposal. So this is 39820 Osprey Road. Oh crap, it already had solar. It did not show that. Did not show that. All right, well, skipping that one. Looking for another one. You know what? This is a perfect time to do a battery only add-on. We're going to do that. You already got solar on the house. You buy it with the solar. What can you do now? Let's add storage. Let's make this a storage only site. Now, typically I would do a retrofit design so that way we can account for what the solar production is. We're going to assume that it's 0 for the annual consumption. And then I'm going to do retrofit, and I'm just going to estimate that these modules are 250 watts. I have no idea. I doubt the description says anything, because realtors are notorious for, homeowners rarely know what solar they have. They're like, I don't know. I got solar though. Do you know what the wattage is? You don't live and breathe it. I get it. You're not going to know it. It's not like a car where you can go outside and look at the emblem and go, yeah, I got a Ford Escape, or I got a Audi SQ5, or I got a Toyota Tundra. Like, it's printed right there. You look at a solar system and they're all blue or black panels. Like, they don't say what brand they are. I'd love to see them and do it in the module cells with their logos. That would look so cool. Anyways, let's do a battery only with a retrofit. This will be a fun one. So when I'm using Open Solar, as you can see, it pulls open the site just like normal, and it asks me, hey, what are the wattage of the panels? Now it's counting for 300 watts already. So we'll go with that. We'll stick it at 300. Most panels are 250. Well, I'd say 235 to 300 is usually that range. Now, depending on this is, DC coupled, it could be microinverters from a year ago or decades ago. I don't know the age of it. It does look a little dated, at least 5 years. My advanced software, I always put at least 5 years in there. So it's calculated, and then I usually add 10% of shading. Now, if you have system monitoring, great, I can kind of dial this in a little bit better. If you don't, then this is what we get. So this is a pretty decent sized system, probably bigger than what it really is. So let's drop this to 250 watt modules. Why did my kilowatt size drop? For some reason, it's not kept it at 17 times 250. Yeah, that'd be a 4.25. Come on, what is going on here? Yeah, it's going off of the modules. That's stupid. Yeah, well, it looks like OpenSolar has a little glitch going on. Their software is not actually reading what the wattage is that the software, what I'm putting in right here. So it's listing it a bit bigger. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to drop down this to 10 panels, which would make it 17 250 watt modules. You know, something small, not the end of the world. Software is not perfect at the end of the day. It has its things. This is kind of a new feature anyways that they've added. It's more of a beta than anything. But it works pretty well. So now we're going to do the new system. Now the new system, we're not going to add panels. We don't care about panels. What we are going to do is add a power wall. Yeah, we're going to add a power wall as well as a Q-cell Q-home core. We're going to compare the two. So we got our power wall inverter in here. We're going to grab a power wall battery. Boom, come over here. That's the power wall main unit. AC coupled. We got to grab the backup switch or backup gateway. You know, can't do the switch. So this is going to be a power wall, and you probably just would be fine with one power wall, 13.5 kilowatt hours of storage if this system was about a 4.3 kilowatts. Right? So, and then we're going to duplicate this one, and we're going to change it to the Q-home core. So there we go. We're going to grab this guy, and bam, grab that. Swap out the inverter. And 7.6. Perfect. And then we're going to swap out for Tesla's gateway and go with Q-Cell's gateway. There we go. And that's all we need. So if you bought this house that already had solar and you were thinking like, hey, you know, I want batteries. Why not? Let's get some batteries, because there's rebates available for them. The self-generation incentive program, and there's virtual power plant programs that pay you so the utility can use your battery during certain times of the year. Pretty cool, right? So one, you get to reduce your usage of the grid in general, become more grid independent, have emergency backup power, have your solar tied into that you know, it came with the house. Why not get a battery? Makes sense to make that investment. So here we are. Let me do one little thing. I have different templates. I have a battery only template. It changes some of the numbers a little bit so it looks a little nicer. Oh, I missed a cost in there. Since this is a battery only price, I gotta go other, and we have to go AXQ BAT. Gotta do this on both of them. We're doing a battery only cost. The permits aren't, you know, plan design permits. Some of that stuff isn't pre-built into a battery system cost when you're going solar. That's built into the solar cost. So when you're doing a battery add-on, there's usually an adder for those fees, those administrative fees that are related to a solar project. I forgot to add them right there. But after looking at the number, I quickly knew, like, I'm missing something here. So no worries, we got it, we're good. So let's take a look. So we got our Powerwall 3 at 16,400. That seems about right. Yeah, one Powerwall, gateway, existing system add-on. Nice. And then Q-Home Core, 15,400. Not too bad. So Q-Cell's beating Tesla by about $1,000, right? And you get a little bit more storage. You're getting about 15 kilowatt hours of storage versus 13.5. Now, here's one thing that most people don't realize about Q-Cell's Q-Home Core. And I'm sure if you were getting multiple quotes that, some of these outside sales reps might be like, oh no, it doesn't have the same power rating. Not true. So the Q-Cell Q-Home Core has a 7.6 kilowatt inverter. During normal grid usage, yes, you are capped at 7.6 kilowatts of power output. But during an outage, that cap is unlocked and you get more backup capabilities and surge capabilities. So it is capable of going up to 11.4 kilowatts, which is in line with what the Tesla Powerwall 3 offers, which is 11.5. So it's important to kind of notate that you aren't losing out in terms of emergency power. Now, surge capabilities are a little different. The LRA rating on the Q-Home Core isn't going to be quite as great as the Powerwall, but honestly, you're probably not going to be backing up your air conditioner with a single Powerwall. You definitely can. It's just not advisable. Usually you can do everything in the house except that one large load. It's just recommended to exclude it from the system. Now, Q-Cell's developed a smart gateway, so you could back up your air conditioner and put it on a smart relay, and then it would automatically shut it off. So it might cost a little more, but again, we already have a $1,000 discount. Maybe we can work it into the numbers. Just really depends. But yeah, I just wanted to show you a battery-only system retrofitted. And as you can see, it comes out pretty nicely. If you factor in the self-generation incentive rebate, you could be looking at like $180 per kilowatt hour. So for a 15 kilowatt hour battery from Q-Cell, that would be about $2,700 back in your pocket. Not to mention the virtual power plant program, which could net you like $150, $200 as well for being part of that. Now, the renewable energy credits require you to get a solar panels. So you already have solar, so there's no participation in that. But if you added solar with the battery, then those solar panels could be part of those renewable energy credits, and you could get some money for that additional system. So yes, the tax credit's gone, but there's still plenty of ways for you to help get your system price down. You just have to work with the right organization, talk to the right person. And that's what I do here at Renewable Innovations. I specialize in clean renewable energy. I make sure to partner with organizations that are doing the best they can to help bring down the cost in whatever way possible, whether it's rebates, incentives, or partnerships with organizations. Q-Cell has a great partnership with Tesla, so they get pretty good pricing on the Powerwalls, and they offer pretty good installation costs when it comes to retrofitting them or adding them on to a new system. So I really like them, but I also have pricing from other partners, other electricians, other organizations. So I do the shopping around for you to save you the time, because if you've ever gone solar once, you know the experience. You get like 50 phone calls. You get people knocking at your door at all hours just because you filled out one online form. That doesn't happen here at Renewable Innovations. I do the hard work for you. I narrow it down to a handful. If you're okay with just one company quote, cool, I got the one company quote. If you want a couple other company quotes, cool, I can get those other company quotes. So I work for you to make sure you get the best deal possible. So that's it for our live solar quotes this week. I'm really thankful for you tuning in. I hope you really enjoyed this one. We got to do a large system, an extra large system with a ground mount, and showcase it against a roof. So that one took up some time. And then of course we did a battery only. Hey, if you bought a house that already had solar, that's great. You don't have to invest in more solar energy, but you should be considering adding a battery system to that and getting home backup, getting part of the virtual power plant network, because that's going to be a growing business over the next couple years. And being an early adopter is really going to pay off. It really will. So thanks for watching. Be sure to like, subscribe, and yeah, I will see you in the next video. Well, one quick thing before I go. So November and December, I am changing my post schedule. So instead of Monday, Wednesday, Friday, you're going to have full-length videos on Monday and Friday, and then the live stream I'm going to try and bump to Wednesday. So Wednesday is going to be the live streams. We'll see how that goes. I might stick with Tuesday. I am liking the results with Tuesday, but I am shrinking for the holidays how many videos I publish per week in full length. So if you check out those longer videos that I go in more details about different stuff, It's going to be Monday and Friday instead of Monday, Wednesday, Friday. Trying to lighten my workload so I can enjoy the holidays a little bit. I hope you're okay with that. But thanks again, and I'll see you in the next one.